I wanted Trump.
You wanted Trump.
Yep. There was no way in hell I wanted her out there. But now I don't know what would have been better.
What were you expecting?
I was expecting the lower cost of a lot of just your everyday living things and hoping that he would make things better for everybody in America because that's what we need. Groceries are already outrageous. And then we put the tariffs on across the seas or whatever, like China, all that. It just makes everything more expensive for everybody.
Jamie Basinger is the only person we met in eastern South Dakota who openly questioned her own political views. Most people we talked to said it was risky to talk about politics here, even as the effects of Trump's tariffs loomed over the agricultural economy in an area that voted for him by about 70%. Generally, opinions were divided between trust Trump's plan and how can you still like this guy. Wait, so Becky, let me ask one thing. Are you in a politically mixed marriage?
Yeah, did you see the Joe Biden sign? Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Becky Hofer was not afraid to talk. She's a Democrat.
No. Chatters are saying you predicted this segment. No, not yet. Not yet. Okay, wait for it. I don't know if it'll happen.
And her husband is a conservative.
Like, I predicted this stuff as well, but there's one thing that I said. That I need to see with my own two eyes. I said, yes, that the former vice journalist is going to go to Trump country. They're going to talk about how sad they are. But there's one aspect of this that hasn't been fulfilled yet. Okay.
Non-voter.
She's
a freight broker. Basically, if a company needs to ship bricks, she'll find you a flatbed truck. If you need to ship meat, she'll get you a refrigerated truck.
Ooh, you need the truck tomorrow? Can you guys fork a pallet jack into the back of the trailer for him to pallet jack him to the front?
This gives her a window into real-time shifts in the economy.
Everybody's nervous. People are making different decisions for different reasons, but some of it's hesitation, some of it's actual price changes. Everybody just wants some stability right now.
And those shifts can be complex. She says China's retaliatory tariffs on American pork and beef could lead to higher prices on fruit.
Right now it's produce season in California. We need to get out to California. What goes out to California? Meat. We haul pork. We haul beef. Where does it go? It goes to Asia. If it doesn't go, the price produce is going to go up even that much more because they're going to have to pay more for the trucks.
As we've talked about, you're in a really conservative area, very pro-Trump area. Do you feel frustrated in trying to talk to your neighbors about what's going on?
Yeah. It's the biggest thing that frustrates me is that I just feel like nobody cares right now until it affects them. And I don't understand how they don't see that. They're not dumb. These people aren't dumb. And they're not unkind people and selfish people and thoughtless people. So I don't understand why they're okay with it.
Hofer introduced us to her neighbor Rod Olerud, who is feeding cattle and who, for now, is okay with it.
I just think we need to let the president do what he's doing, and we need to just see what's going to happen here and give him a little latitude so that, if it doesn't work, then we're going to have to try something different.
Okay. So you're willing to let the president try some stuff to see?
Yes, to see if this works. Let's give the president a chance, and we'll just have to go from there. Looks like a little boy.
Tommy Baruth thinks we already give it a chance. He's a retired soybean farmer who saw what happened in 2018 when Trump put tariffs on China.
The export market just went right down the tube because these countries could buy them from other places cheaper. Brazil and other countries were the ones that benefited from that.
I read that it stayed that way, that now China buys a lot more from Brazil.
Exactly. And a lot of times those markets don't come back.
Doug Bjerke runs a lawn mowing business. He says Trump's plan will work out in the long term, even if some crop prices.
I didn't realize. Why? Pure faith. Pure faith placed upon a man who has done nothing to deserve said faith. We are simply wish casting. Okay? It's just cultish thinking. It's hilarious. It's going to work out. Why is it going to work out? I don't know. It'll just work out. I have placed faith on the man, the myth, the legend, my GOAT, the God King Savior, Donald Trump. I wish I could have someone love me like this. Okay. Jesus Christ.
His fault.
Yeah, the price might come down, but when them people start starving, they're going to come back to the table.
You mean in the other countries?
Yeah, we're a gracious nation feeding the world, and we shouldn't have to without getting something for it.
What?
Rick Ekman says in the 3 days after the tariffs, cattle futures dropped below the point of break even for his farm.
Never had him do this before.
Yeah, he really likes you.
Did you vote for Trump?
No. No, I did not.
Why not?
You want me to be truthful? I think to get to where he's at today, he's stepped on people and he's got no morals, I don't think. I don't like the man. I don't like him.
Hasan is part of the male loneliness epidemic. True.
Do support.
I don't know. I guess I don't see anything good about him.
Does it affect the way you think about America?
It scares me.
Terry Nebelsick, a lifelong Republican and retired school superintendent, was very careful in how he talked about the political climate. He's concerned that Trump's push to dissolve the Department of Education will cut public school funds for needy kids, potentially at a time of economic turmoil.
If poverty...
They're whispering because they're in an area of South Dakota that voted for Trump by roughly 70%. So any kind of dissent against dear leader must be done in a hush-hush manner, okay? You never know. You never know where the prying eyes are. You never know who might overhear this conversation. They're like, oh yeah, I didn't vote for him. I'm so sorry. No, it is okay that he is completely destabilizing the global economy and ruining my livelihood. It is fine. Things will work out, I think.
It's happening to adults. Children are hurting. And where adults sometimes just have to work through it and make sure there's food on the table. During that time, we have children and adolescents who are forming who they're going to be. And I do think that the public school is a collecting point for people to be able to reach those kids and make sure that they're fed and have medical attention and have their basic needs met.
Again and again, our conversations in this Midwestern nice town came back to character and values.
When Sheila and I raised our children, we taught them to be honest, not try to cheat anybody, to respect. Trump doesn't do any of those things.
Do you find a lot of farmers around here agree with you, or are they fans of Trump?
This is a very Republican state. I think it's too soon for them to say they're wrong.
Ellie, I love the conversations that you are able to bring to us and bring to light. Given everything that we just saw, do the Trump supporters that you spoke to, do they regret their vote?
I get that question so much, particularly from people in bluer states, and again they say no.
Right.
They really put a lot of faith in him. One man described him as courageous, and they said people have told me they're willing to take a serious financial hit to their own personal finances in order to let him do his thing, because they really have faith in him, that he's the only one willing to do what needs to be done.
To turn it around. I find that fascinating that they are willing to say, I'm willing to take the hit.
Yeah.
Take that pain, but how long? That's that big question now. It's great to see you.
Good to-
Thank you.
So, talking about the tariffs, obviously over the last several weeks, we've seen Donald Trump, the president, losing support among voters writ large over the tariffs. His numbers on the economy are going south. He's hemorrhaging support among independents on the economy. But what about Trump voters?
Yeah, get ready for Holy Toledo.
How do they feel about all this? One man can answer that question. He just happens to be the one man standing beside me right now, CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton. Let's talk about Trump voters and how they feel. Do they regret their vote?
I mean, this is the big question, right? I hear all these stories.
It's funny how liberals constantly sold this lie that their country is noble and selfless, and now it's that exact false marketing that is destroying liberalism because Republicans are too stupid, so they fall for it, and too selfish, so they hate. You sound like a Chinese netizen with how poetic you got there. It's the highest order of praise I can offer any chatter one day.
Stories, all these articles, all the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. What are we talking about? Trump voters looking back at 2024. We got a new poll out. The poll was conducted this month.
Dude, oh hell yeah. What a cult. Dude, Dude, oh, amazing. 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 What? Doomer TV? All people here already know this is happening. Give us what we need. How you learn from other edutainment creators. Reach us and not try and convince the Nazis. Guess chamber take lies. Be swole. Be who you wish, Bernie, and other people like you are, bruh. Bro, are you okay? What the f are you saying?
What percentage would change their vote to a different candidate? We're talking just 2%, just 2%. That's not even a wide spot on the road. And then there's this additional 1% who say they would rather not vote. We're talking overall under 5% might or would have changed their vote.
How do you not look at this and get doomer pilled? I mean, dude, it's cult. It's cult. It's a cult, baby. These people, I think, one, due to their anger and resentment towards institutions, and Donald Trump certainly is punishing those institutions, and two, due to a lack of alternative from their assessment, someone like Bernie or the Democratic Party adopting Bernie's messaging and being like a left populist movement in general, literally look at the situation and go, yeah, I got no other options. Who the fuck else am I going to vote for? The woke and gays? And because of that, I think Donald Trump could literally line them up and shoot them one by one, and the remainder would still say, nah, there's some purpose for this. There's some purpose for this. There's a higher purpose here. That's it. This shouldn't make you black-pilled, however. It should not. One, because sometimes these polls are not exactly accurate, and two, people have the capacity to change their minds. You can try to ease that process of mind changing by ensuring that people do not feel resentful or embarrassed or silly. I know we like to have fun looking at, the soybean farmer that's like in tears saying, I voted for you, Mr. President. Please, I'm begging you not to do these terrorists. What are you doing? You're killing my family. Okay. And there is a reason for that. I mean, sometimes we're gonna, enjoy the ride a little bit because we're getting over in this process too. Might as well enjoy the show for the brief moments. But ultimately, when you're addressing people in the real world, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be annoying, smarmy, elitist. You should do everything in your power to be open-minded, understanding, demonstrate empathy, and recognize that everyone has the capacity to change. But more importantly than these guys who who are voting for Donald Trump and haven't changed their minds yet, there are plenty of people who are inactive that you can organize. There are plenty of people who did not vote that you can get on board. So it's not just the Trump voters that you can change the minds of, even though plenty of them can have their minds changed. The reason why they haven't had their minds changed is not just because of their cult-like thinking, but because there is no alternative that they see as an earnest counterbalance to all of the madness and mania of the Trump regime.
Vote Donald Trump voters back in 2024. And then you ask, okay, the same question to Kamala Harris voters, and it turns out the numbers are rather similar. So if there was a repeat, if folks got to be able to redo their vote that they had back in 2024, would the result be any different? I doubt it would be. I doubt it would be, or it would still be extremely close. The bottom line is, for all this talk of Trump voters regretting their vote, in the numbers, it really just doesn't show up, John.
So the stickiness with Trump voters and President Trump in this presidency, how does it compare to his first presidency?
Yeah, okay. So, I was interested in sort of a historical analogy here, sort of, does this look similar or different from back in 2017, looking at 2016? Well,
the reason why the felt bad about my voters in 2017 was a higher percentage. Well, despite the fact that demonstrably he did less bad in that short period of time, for the record, is because a lot of new people were voting for him, assuming that he was an outsider, that was more moderate than the way that the media had presented him. Okay? That's a big part of the reason. It wasn't because of the impact of his policies, but more so that he was new. Like, people voted for him. You're laughing when I say moderate, but yes, I think you forget how people perceive Hillary Rodham Clinton, okay, for a lot of good reason and also even insane ones. You literally are talking about a group of voters that range from saying she is a pedophilic vampire to people that directly see her as the human manifestation of like all of the out of touch elitist technocratic approaches that have ruined the economy for a lot of people in the Rust Belt. And for others, the person who did Benghazi, which is such a big deal, the Benghazi and the butter emails. Both of those things are true. No, she's not a vampire. Pedophilic, yes. Vampire, no. Anyway, that's besides the point. Vampires are not real. That's what I meant. So my point is, Trump was seen as an outsider who was uncorruptible, an uncorruptible force that tells you how it is. That's how people saw it in 2016. And then very quickly, the media immediately started tackling this issue, saying, this is not us. This is not who we are as America. 2024, this is who we are as America. It's even more shocking that after 4 years of Trump and January 6th, Americans were like, nah, I'm still going to go with this guy who's going to take a chainsaw to the administrative state, because the government, the institutions, the Democratic Party, I want to nuke it all. That's part of the reason why this time around, there's less people that are like, yeah, I don't know about my vote.
Well, in February of 2017, 4% of Trump voters say they'd shift their vote. That's actually slightly more than the 3% this time around. So, you look back, you say, okay, there's these Trump voters who really regret their vote. Historically speaking, they really don't regret their vote. And if anything, the number this time around is actually smaller than it was the first time around. And it's certainly...
I still don't get it. Sorry. It's because people know who Trump is. This is not a surprise at this point for people. That's why it's an even smaller percentage. It's also obviously not shocking that people refuse to reckon with their mistakes, and they would rather delude themselves. They would rather delude themselves into thinking, no, I still made the right choice. Things will work out,
Smaller than the number we saw coming out of 2020, of course, after the events of January 6th. So the bottom line is this. If there's some idea out there that Trump voters are going around, man, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, the numbers say that is a fanciful universe. It really, for the most part, does not exist.
What about the Republican brand in general? Any evidence that people are, leaving that brand faster than they're leaving the Democrats?
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday we spoke about Trump's approval rating, right? But it's very important to note, nothing cannot be nothing. That is, when you put two folks together or two folks against each other, the results might look different than just looking at one of them. And on this particular measure, which I think is so important, because what we saw in 2024 was Republicans getting a rare lead on party identification. It was a 1-point lead, according to Gallup. Look at where it was in an average of Gallup polls so far this year, plus 2 points for Republicans. If anything, the Republican brand has actually perhaps gotten a smidgen stronger, though these are within the margin of error. Very different from 2017, when Democrats held a 5-point advantage. And I'll finally note, this looks very much like the generic ballot trend, which in 2025 looks an awful bit like November of 2024, when Republicans, of course, won and held the House.
Long way to say that the Democratic Party's incompetence and overall horrifying approval ratings is creating a situation where Trump continues to destroy the economy. Trump continues to destroy due process, rip apart the fucking Constitution. And yet people still go, best we got. When you say trans issue, I bet that right there is the greatest demonstration of what I'm talking about. Okay. The very fact that we still spend any time talking about trans people, which are such a tiny sliver percentage of the population, when all of the things that I just mentioned in terms of global markets on fire, American dollar dominance possibly on its way out. Okay. Not immediately, but, accelerating the process. American empire dying, the mass layoffs at the federal level, the undermining of the regulatory agencies, undermining of the Constitution, undermining of due process, black bagging random people in the middle of the street, and then openly admitting that you made a mistake and then refusing to listen to a unanimous Supreme Court decision to return this person. Like, all of that is insane. And yet people still want to talk about trans people. Do you understand? Do you understand how insane that is? The fact that people can't recognize this as a distraction is so sad. And the only reason why people can't recognize this as a distraction is because there is no definable trait of the Democratic Party. The counterbalance against rising fascism in this country is nothing. It's just a bunch of platitudes at best. It's defined perfectly by Cory Booker's 24-hour filibuster that was not even filibustering against a bill. You understand? That's how the Democratic Party is defining itself as in this unique moment. Not with Senator Van Hollen's actions, not with Bernie Sanders and AOC doing the fighting oligarchy tour, even though that in and of itself is also not enough either. So for a lot of these people, it's just there's nothing. There's no definable characteristic of the party that is supposed to be not the Republican Party. So what are people supposed to expect here? Like, I know that this is a lot of animosity, a lot of dumb people, a lot of reactionary tendencies as well. But like, if that is already existing, you have to combat it. You have to work. You have to actively undermine these reactionary tendencies. You have to build a base of support. You have to be a counterbalance. It takes years to change the trajectory. It takes years to change people's attitudes about these sorts of things. And the Democrats have done nothing. They've done nothing. And now, uneducated VOD frog, what made you say Bernie should push support for Hamas in Congress in a recent stream? Genuine question. I understand that they are resistant groups against Israel's occupation, but they haven't also been authoritarian and aggressive towards the Gaza population. Is that just propaganda? Or are you saying that since Israel's the occupier bombing children and the focus should be on them instead of Hamas? Well, that's the second thing that you already arrived at. Yes. Yes. You asked the question, and I think you asked a question in because you were genuinely interested in hearing my perspective, and then you figured it out immediately. I didn't say Bernie Sanders should push support for Hamas. I said that Bernie Sanders, if he wanted to, could stop a bill like this from getting unanimous consent, but it would be it would be a political cost that he would have to bear here, but he could use that as an opportunity to change the discourse surrounding who the real villains are in the story. And the real villains of the story is not Hamas, no matter how hard American media, every organization, every institution, the entire political class universally says it is Hamas. It is Hamas. Hamas are terrorists. It is Israel. They hold all the cards. They hold all the power. The problem ultimately is that Bernie Sanders doesn't think Israel is the villain in the story, or at least Israel is a villain, but not the major villain in the story. And that's wrong. Israel is the major villain in the story, is the primary villain. And the primary responsibility lies on Israel.